The Lord be with you.
And with your
A
spirit.
reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
The crowds asked John the Baptist, "What should we do?" He said to them in reply, "Whoever has two cloaks should share with the person who has none, and whoever has food should do likewise." Even tax collectors came to be baptized, and they said to him, "Teacher, what should we do?" He answered them, "Stop collecting more than what is prescribed." Soldiers always asked him, "And what is it that we should do?" He told them, "Do not practice extortion. Do not falsely accuse anyone, and be satisfied with your wages." Now the people were filled with expectation, and all were asking in their hearts whether John might be the Christ. John answered them all, saying, "I am baptizing you with water, but one mightier than I is coming. I am not worthy to loosen the thongs of his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. His winnowing fan is in his hand to clear his threshing floor and to gather the wheat into his barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire." Exhorting them in many other ways, he preached good news to the people. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord.
There are certain questions in life that remain important to all of us through our lives. One of those questions begins our gospel reading today. What should we do? What is the right things? What is the right things, the good things to do? It is a question we will often find ourselves asking. If we have in our hearts the desire to do what is right, what is best, then that question will always be important for us. What should we do as a church, as a society? What should I do in my own personal life? For all of us as followers of Jesus, as people who have been baptized into Christ, the question, what should we do, becomes, what does the Lord want me to do? What is the Lord asking of me? The answer to that question will not always be easy to find. We may need some guidance. We may need to talk to someone who can help us to see what it is we should do, what it is the Lord is asking of us here and now. The people in today's gospel reading looked to John the Baptist for guidance. He gave them very clear guidance. He firstly called on everyone to share from their surplus with those in greatest need. Then he had a specific guidance for a specific groups. He told tax collectors to not defraud people. He told soldiers not to use their authority to intimidate people. There was general guidance to apply to all, and then there was a specific guidance that was relevant to particular groups. John was aware that the call to share, to give generously to others, would find expression in different ways for different people, depending on their circumstances of life. That is true to all of us today. The gospel call is addressed to all of us in a general way, to call to love others as the Lord loved us, to be generous in our dealing with others as the Lord has been generous to us, to forgive as we have been forgiven by the Lord, to serve as we have been served by Him. Yet that general call will take a different concrete shape for each one of us, depending of the situation in which we we each find ourselves. We each have worked out what the call of the gospel means for me concretely in my own specific circumstances of life. What should I do in my own unique situation that no one else can do, that no one else is called to do? What is the Lord asking of me personally here and now? Today's second reading is taken from Paul's letter to the church of Philippi. He wrote that letter from prison. When you read that entire letter, it is clear that Paul was asking himself in prison, what should I do? What in these very unpromising circumstances of my life is the Lord calling to me to do? Is the Lord calling to me to do? You could say that his options were very limited as long as he was in prison. The experience of prison does not create many choices for people. Yet, Paul was aware that he had options. He could have retreated into himself and become completely self absorbed. He could have become resentful at the injustice that was being done to him. He did none of those things. Instead, he reached out in love to one of his churches, the church that had recently sent him help while he was in prison, the church in the city of Philippi. He wrote a letter to them and he found someone to take it to them. It is a letter that is devoid of all self pity, self absorption. Instead, it is full of pastoral care for the members of the church who are going through their own valley of darkness in the darkness in the form of hostility from the surrounding society. Even though his own situation was very unpromising, Paul reached out in love to those he left some responsibility for. He knew what he had to do, and he also knew that he was empowered to do it. Towards the end of the letter, he says, I can do all things in him who gives me strength. Paul can serve as an inspiration to all of us today. The little bit from his letter to the Philippians that is given to us this Sunday suggests the importance of prayer in helping Paul to discern what he had to do and in empowering him to do it. He says there, if there is anything you need, pray for it, asking God for it with prayer and thanksgiving. We look to the Lord in prayer to help us to discern what it is we should do, what it is He wants us to do. We look to the Lord not as someone who is remote from us, but as someone who, in the words of Paul in the same reading, is very near. In the words of the first reading of the prophet, the Lord your God is in your midst. If we open ourselves up to the Lord in prayer, He will guide and direct us as to what we should do. And He will also give us, as He gave Paul, the strength to do it. through the Holy Spirit.